The New York Rangers have become the first team eliminated from the 24-team NHL playoff format. We have Jake Muzzin and the Leafs suffered a pretty serious injury as well. We'll recap all the latest playoff action coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have our first team eliminated from the play-in series and from the 24-team NHL playoff bubble. The New York Rangers have been ousted by the Carolina Hurricanes, who went down 3 straight games. So the Canes sweep the Rangers 3-0, and really for the most part, it really wasn't all that close. The Hurricanes were clearly the better team the entire way through. The Rangers barely held a lead through the 3 games for the most part. They were either trailing or tied. They really struggled. The Canes just had too strong of a forecheck, too strong of a defense. Got great goaltending between Mrazek and James Reimer. Reimer played the 3rd game. Of course, is a pretty strategic move from Brind'Amour. Had nothing to do with Mrazek's play. Even though he won the first 2 games, if they would have lost that game and went on to a game 4, they would have had a back-to-back situation. And for these teams that are going through the qualifying round, if they go on a deep playoff run and want to have a chance at a Stanley Cup, they're going to potentially play upwards of 30 games. They can't wear out one goaltender. So don't be surprised if you see many of these teams playing multiple goalies regardless of the results. And I think that's a pretty smart move. But the Hurricanes just had a bit of everything going well. Like I said, solid goaltending, solid D, great forwards. Their forwards in the top 6, like Sebastian Aho, dominated the series. He had 8 points, 15 shots on goal, played a lot of 5-on-5 and really had some really strong advanced stats. Andrei Svechnikov played exceptionally well, had a hat trick in the 2nd game. Teravainen was strong. Whereas on the Rangers side, their top guys like Panarin and Zibanejad, Ryan Strome, Chris Kreider just were not good enough. I mean, there was a few good plays from Zibanejad and Panarin. They weren't like absolutely terrible, but considering what they get paid for and what kind of performance they gave in the regular season, they weren't anywhere near that in these playoffs. The goaltending for the Rangers, I think, was okay. Henrik Lundqvist played the first 2, where Shesterkin was able to come back and play game 3. And I thought that Henrik was pretty decent. I don't think he was awesome, or he wasn't really terrible either, but he was good to give him a chance. And the team in front of him just didn't play well. And same thing with Shesterkin. Like, he was good, made some really good saves early on in game 3 yesterday, but it just wasn't enough. The defense on the Rangers side was not great. Tony DeAngelo, I thought, had an especially bad series, but he's not the only one. A lot of the Rangers blue liners just were not up to par from a defensive perspective. I know at one point Sebastian Aho made Tony DeAngelo look completely ridiculous and on a pretty good move there, going in for a chance to score. So the Rangers just did not get what we thought they would get. I know in my early prediction videos, when we first had the 24-team playoff announcement, I did predict the Carolina Hurricanes to win the series. I thought it would be tighter, closer, and longer than what it was. When I put out my latest predictions right before things started, I did kind of change my mind and go back on that, and I regret doing it now. But I did say the Rangers would win, but at the same time, I also didn't know Shesterkin was going to be out. We didn't learn that until right before game 1. But my rationale for that was that the Canes were going to be without their top 2 defensemen, and Dougie Hamilton and Brett Pesce. And I knew they'd still have a good blue line and a strong blue line without them. But I didn't think it would be as good as it was. It just really well executed. So obviously kind of standing by closer to my original prediction back early on. But of course the Rangers handled the Canes quite easily during the regular season play before the NHL pause. But things were just incredibly different during this play-in series. Rangers are on their way home. Of course, they stayed in their bubble location last night, and they were supposed to be heading out today. Basically, teams are asked to vacate the bubble as soon as possible when they've been eliminated. So obviously, with it being a later game yesterday, they head back to New York. They probably are already there by the time this video actually makes it to be posted on YouTube. So Rangers are done. Canes are moving on. I would not want to play Carolina the next round. They're just clicking at all cylinders, and we'll see how much of a threat they can be in the round of 16 potentially and beyond. Now, as I mentioned as well, let's recap quickly what else happened in yesterday's action. The Maple Leafs had a much better game, strong comeback with a 3-0 shutout victory over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Austin Matthews and John Tavares both got on the board. They were able to generate a lot more shots on goal. They were able to generate a lot more offense, and their top players were the top players and came through with a big victory. Late in the game, though, there was a very scary incident. Pierre-Luc Dubois cross-checked Jake Muzzin in the back and kind of shoved him down, and then he did fall into a Columbus defender and hit his head, shoulder. Hard to say exactly what happened, but he was on the ice. It was a scary incident. They had to be stretchered off. Looks as though he did lose feeling in some of his extremities while on the ice, which was certainly a scary feeling. There was no suspension on the play. The NHL has confirmed that Dubois will not be suspended. It'll be somewhat of a freak accident play, just like we saw with Mark Scheifele and Matthew Tkachuk. I know some of the Jets people, especially head coach Paul Maurice, was convinced it was deliberate, but there really wasn't any evidence to suggest that. And same thing here. Yes, I mean, it was a dangerous cross-check. It certainly could have been a penalty, but I don't think it'll be any more than a penalty on this play. So it's unfortunate what happened, how he fell. And obviously, we don't know the full extent of his injuries, but he did go to hospital for precaution. He did regain feeling in his extremities not long after being taken away. So he was in the hospital, and they did confirm that he will be out for the remainder of this series. He didn't say anything beyond that, of course, with the new rules on injury. Revelations that were not really being revealed much of anything, just that he'll be unfit to play for the remainder of the Columbus series. After that, maybe he can come back. We'll have to wait further updates, and we'll see here. But first, I got to get by Columbus before that's a concern. But obviously, Jake Muzzin plays a big role for the Maple Leafs on the blue line. Very physical, one of their better actual defenders. So that's going to have an impact on things for sure. I would imagine a guy like Rasmus Sandin is probably going to be the one to step in and get more of an opportunity here. So big blow for the Maple Leafs, but maybe they can rally off of it as well and use that as motivation to keep going here and win for Muzzin. So we'll see. Our thoughts are certainly with Jake. I hope he's doing better. It was a scary situation. You hate to see stuff like that happen on the ice. Now, we also saw the New York Islanders defeat the Florida Panthers yesterday, 4-2. Obviously, they took a 2-0 stranglehold on that series. They're actually playing Game 3 right now as I record this video. It's late in the game, and the Panthers do have a lead, so we'll see if the Panthers can hold on or not. But we'll see what happens there. But the Bobrovsky, again, wasn't the best. The Islanders had pretty good overall play. Barry Trotz's system was continuing to be effective against the Panthers. Jordan Eberle scored 2 late goals for the Islanders, and they got the 2-0 lead. So we'll see here if they can battle back in this Game 3, or if it's going to end up going to at least a 4th game to have that series decided. Now, we also saw the Winnipeg Jets and the Calgary Flames do battle here again in Game 3. The Flames grabbed this one with a 6-2 victory, and the Jets unfortunately faced some more injuries. Like that, the manpower games loss is going to be crazy here. They are already without Laine and Scheifele with pretty serious injuries, so debatable on when they can return. Mason Appleton was also revealed to be injured. Then they lost Matthew Perreault. Tucker Pullman was out. He did come back with a full cage on. He had a puck to the face. He had a great big swollen part of his face there, but he was playing through it. It seemed to be okay, and then we changed the shield a couple times trying to get comfortable with everything. But the Jets are just beaten and battered here. The Flames took advantage. They had a variety of goal scorers put the puck in the net, including Milan Lucic, who scored a goal, which I know will help him with his confidence. But guys like Tkachuk, Monahan, Gaudreau all on the board. Backlund had a decent game as well. And the Flames now take a 2-1 series lead. We'll see if the Jets can gut one out, or if they're just going to lose too much manpower here and what happens. But the Jets are in trouble due to all the health concerns with so many players on their team. Can the Flames wrap it up in the next game, or can the Jets tough it out, extend this series? I guess we'll have to see if they have that in them or not. The Nashville Predators tied things up with the Coyotes with a 4-2 victory. Antti Raanta continues to be out for the Coyotes as well. Kumper's been playing in goal, but given how everything went, it's likely that Kumper's not going to get a break, as Raanta's been deemed unfit to play. Not quite sure exactly what's going on with him. At one point, though, in this game, Nashville was up 4-0. Was not a great game by the Coyotes. Much better game from the Predators here in the second game. So they had a 4-0 lead right up until, I believe, it was the final minute of play, when the Coyotes popped in a couple of late ones to make it somewhat interesting. But even the second goal, there was, I think, about 30 seconds or something like that left in the game. So really not all as close as it might seem. So obviously the Predators had a tie series now, and we'll see what happens. UC Saros continued to play in net for the Predators, while veteran Pecorine is on the bench. So that was certainly another interesting goaltending decision by another NHL team. There's been lots of those so far early on in these playoffs. The final game of the night saw the Vancouver Canucks tie things up with the Minnesota Wild with a 4-3 victory. The Canucks had several lineup changes. Tyler Toffoli and Adam Gaudette were both pulled out of the lineup due to injuries. At least that's what we were told, that they were not considered healthy scratches. They were unfit to play. Tyler Toffoli apparently was seen wearing a walking boot, so it appears to be some sort of foot or ankle injury, and there's really been nothing revealed on how long he's going to be out, of course, with how everything's working in these playoffs. But the Canucks certainly had a much better game. They got goals from guys like Horvat and Brock Besser, as well as JT Miller. They made several lineup changes going in for the guys that were hurt, or Jake Virtanen and Louis Eriksson, and they both actually had pretty decent games. So that's a positive sign. It looks like they're motivated due to the fact that they did not play in the first game, especially for Virtanen. He has a lot to prove right now, being an RFA and all the rumors surrounding his future with the Canucks, and so he seemed to be trying to make the most of it and working hard, which is certainly sometimes a knock on him and for his defensive play as well. But I thought he did much better in that regard in many sections of last night's game. So, of course, in the case of the Wild, they did lose Ryan Hartman due to injury as well. Not quite clear what his status is moving forward. Kevin Fiala actually made this game much closer with a couple of late goals. He's really been an offensive dynamo for the Wild. He was one of the hottest players in the NHL before the NHL paused down the stretch, and he's picked things up right where he left off here in these NHL playoffs. So right now, I know Paul Fenton was criticized a lot during his time as general manager with the Minnesota Wild, made some really peculiar and strange moves, but that one that he made for picking up Kevin Fiala right now is looking pretty darn good, where he traded Granlund for Fiala. I mean, in the beginning, it was like, Kevin Fiala has always been a pretty good player, a younger, exciting player in the league, but he really struggled his last good stretch of time there in Nashville, and it seemed questionable, but now it's really paying off, and he's has a bright future in Minnesota, being that offensive weapon that they so desperately need. But they do need some more offensive players to play with him to really take this team forward here, in my opinion. So that is your playoff recap for now. Of course, stay tuned. There will be plenty more NHL live streams coming up here soon, when we can live stream and discuss the game together as a community. So stay tuned for posts to indicate what the schedule is going to be on that moving forward. Let me know your thoughts on all the action down below, and give me some predictions on what's going to happen here today and moving forward for the remainder of these play-in series. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.